Hi guys, I hope I'm audible. Alright, let's start our class. As this is our first demo, let me first introduce myself. I'm Divya. I have about 8 plus years of experience into data analytics. I'm currently working as a senior data analyst in one of the MNCs in Hyderabad, and I completed my master's in data science. I have experience in teaching all the data science subjects like SQL, Tableau, Power BI, Python, statistics, and machine learning. So this is about me, and you are here to learn SQL, right? So let's discuss today about the basics of SQL. Along with that, let's see the user interface of MySQL today. Okay. So the tool which we are going to cover in our course is MySQL. Okay. First, let me. So what is SQL first of all? SQL in the sense, as we know, it's a full form of SQL is structured query language, right? So what is actually SQL in the sense to understand before what is SQL, let me tell you what is database. Okay. So what is database in the sense the collection of data. Okay. It's a collection of data generally where we will store a lots of data or big data in companies, that is database. Okay. Database is a place where we will store the data. Okay. So as you know, we have so many formats of data, right? We can store the data even in the Excel file, even in the text file. Likewise, if we are working with big data, to store that data, we will use databases in real time. Correct? So SQL in the sense, it is a language which is used to communicate with the database. Okay? SQL is a language used to communicate with the database. Okay, that means I'm saying we will store all of the data in the form of in the databases. Inside databases, we will store the data. Okay, but according to our requirement, whenever we want to see some data, whenever we want to analyze some data, display some data, we will use SQL as a medium. Okay, SQL is one language. By using SQL only, we will communicate with the database. Whatever requirements we are having, obviously, normally also to communicate, there should be suppose if we are having some requirements, if we want to talk with someone, definitely we will in our regional language we will talk with some people and we will let them know what is our requirement, right? Suppose here in the class, you are there, I'm trying to explain you something, or else in real time also whenever we want something, we will talk and we will communicate with them, and any person, okay, person to person I'm talking about, we will just communicate by using any language, any regional language. It may be English, it may be Telugu, Hindi, like that. Some language we will use to communicate what we want or whatever. Whenever we are talking, we will use some language, right? In the same way, database is a place where we will store all the data. It is a collection of data. And whenever we have requirement, whenever we want something from the database, we will use SQL as a language to communicate with the database. I hope I'm clear about database and SQL. Let's keep this session interactive, guys. Please respond to me. All right, so perfect. So now I'm saying that in our course, we are learning about MySQL, right? Then what is MySQL in the sense? As I said, SQL is a language. Okay, so it is a universal declared language which is used to communicate with the database. Okay, all the concepts, whatever we are going to learn, that concepts are of SQL only. But to use this SQL, we have many different tools in the market. Okay, suppose like Oracle SQL, MySQL, SQL Server. Like that, we are having so many tools. These are all just the tools which is used to use the SQL language. That's it, nothing different. SQL is one subject, all the concepts belongs to SQL only. To use that SQL language, we will use different tools in the market. If you can see, Oracle SQL and MySQL are the tools from Oracle company. Okay, SQL Server is a tool from Microsoft company. Likewise, some companies have their own tools in the market to use SQL. Okay, that is the thing. So in our course, we are going to learn MySQL. So why only MySQL? In the sense, it is sorry, it is open source platform. Okay, open source platform in the sense MySQL is freely available for everyone. Okay, so to use MySQL, no need of if suppose for Oracle SQL or SQL Server to maintain that, to use that tool, we need to pay some amount to that particular companies. Whereas MySQL is an open source platform, it is freely available, so anyone and everyone can use MySQL freely. And for that reason, most of the companies, even it is startup companies, even it is MNCs nowadays using MySQL as a tool. Okay, that is the reason we are going to use this tool. We are going to learn MySQL in our course. Okay, I hope I'm clear up to here. Perfect. Now, let's talk something about databases. So, as I said, database is a place where we will store the data, right? So, inside database, basically, we will create tables. Okay. So, we will store the data inside the database by creating the tables. Basically, we will first create the database. Inside the database, we will create tables, and inside tables, we will store the data. Okay. So, let me show you one example here. Suppose if I wanted to store employees data in one table, employees will be my table name, and I'll write my data in the form of rows and columns here. Suppose employee ID, employee name, salary, date of joining. Like this, some data I wanted to store. Let me enter some random data here. So imagine I wanted to store some employees data, how I entered here. Okay. So employees is our table name. Inside table, as I'm saying, inside database, first we will create the tables. Okay. Table will look like this. Table is a collection of rows and columns. Okay. Of course, these are just some basic topics, basic terms. Most of you might know about this, but still, if there are anyone who don't know about this or who is completely new to IT domain, for them it will be useful. That is the reason I'm explaining. Whatever we will learn here, we will learn everything from scratch to the advanced topics. Okay. So tables, in the sense, we will in create the tables by using rows and columns. Okay, vertical thing is called as column. Here, this is my column. Employee ID is one column. Employee name is one column. salary, date of joining are the columns. Okay, that is vertical thing is called as a column, and horizontal part is called as a row. This is one row of data. This is my second row of data, like that. So table is a combination of rows and columns. Okay, as this is an Excel file, I entered like this randomly. Now let's see whatever we learned, how to create the tables, whatever it is. This is about the whatever I said till now. This is about the basic understanding about what is SQL and what is database, what is SQL Server, like that. Okay. Now let's see user interface of SQL, MySQL. Okay. MySQL is a tool which we are going to learn in our course. So let me open MySQL first. Let me show you the user interface, and let's just try to create a database and table today. Okay, so you can see here, this is a MySQL tool. I'm just opening that. Once we are done with the demo classes, I will show you the installation process of MySQL. Okay, so once I open the tool, I can get into this page where I can see something called as local instance here. I'm just clicking on this. These are all some of the files which I am already opened. Let me close the files. But before that, as I already having some files open here, let me tell you the way of explanation and the way how I give you the notes in our course. Okay, so as you know, from today, our course duration is 35 days, right? And the course fees is of 3,000. If you are interested, you can get registered with us. And from the day of you, once you get registered, from that day till 6 months you will get access of the live videos. Whatever I explain in the class, that live videos you will get access, as most of you know, right? Along with that, I'll upload the notes of SQL. So basically how I believe in uploading the notes in itself, instead of giving theory notes separately and coding part separately, I will, once we are done with each and every concept, I will upload you this SQL files only, where you can see here. Suppose this is one of the regular expression concept. Here I wrote some notes at the bottom. Whatever examples we will, these are some examples. These are some queries like that. I'll upload this file only for you, so that in one go you can see theory part as well as the syntaxes as well as the examples in one file. Okay, like this, whatever we will learn in this course, we will learn along with the examples by using the real-time database, that is movies or Netflix database. Okay, so like this, if it is joins, everything we will learn very practically with all the examples. Once we are done with each and every concept, I will upload these files only for you. Okay, so let me just close them quickly. All right, so this is a user interface of my SQL. Okay, as you can see here. So once I open, you can see something called as schemas here, and below schemas, this is the list of the databases what I'm having in my laptop. Okay, sorry guys, I'm suffering from cold, just ignore me. So um, below schemas, you can find the list of the databases available. Okay, by default, whenever you install your application, you can see only sys database. Okay, remaining all the databases, once you create whatever databases you create, all those list of the databases you can find here. Okay, this is database symbol, and beside that, the database name. Okay, so to open a new SQL file, we need to first open a SQL file, that is an editor page where we will write all the queries. So to open a new SQL file, either we can go to this file. This is basically the menu bar and this is the toolbar. Okay. Either we can directly go to file option. Okay. Let me show you. From file, I need to click on new query tab. Okay, if I click on new query tab in the file menu, new query tab, if I click, I can able to open a SQL file like this. Okay, or else even we have a shortcut, that is this symbol, the first symbol in the toolbar. Okay, this is a shortcut. If I click on this also, I can able to open a new file. I'm just clicking on this now. You can see one more file got open. Either I can click on this first symbol directly or else from file new query tab. Okay. So here you can see SQL file 8 is my file. This is a editor page where I will write all my queries. Okay. So within this file, let's see some options. So first option is folder option. Okay. After writing some queries here, after writing something here, if we want to save this file in our laptop, we'll click this second button, save button. Okay. By clicking this, we can save this file in our laptops. Okay. And whenever we want to open a already saved file, we will click this folder icon and we can able to open any of the SQL files which we already saved. Okay. Let's just selecting anything. If we click on open, it will get open. Something like this. Okay. So this is a save button. This is a to open the saved files, we will use this folder button. And the third one, whatever we are having here, that is execute button. After writing any SQL queries, we need to execute it, right? So to for while executing, we will use this third button. Okay, third option. So these are some basic points, basic options which we need to know at this point of time. Going forward, we will learn about the remaining options. Okay, so I hope I'm clear. Now let's do one thing. Let's create our own database today. Okay. So before understanding about creating the database and all, let me give you some points here. As we know, SQL is nothing but full form is structured query language, right? And as I said, SQL is used to communicate with the database, right? So whatever we write inside database, whatever data we store inside database, whenever we have some requirements to just communicate our requirements with the database, we will use SQL as a language, right? Which I just explained just now, right? What is database in the sense, as I said, collection of data, right? Inside database only we will store all our data, and whatever data we are having inside the database, according to our requirements, whenever we want to display some data, whenever we had some requirements to communicate that requirements to let the database know our requirements, we will use SQL as a language. Correct. So these are 2 points. And SQL is case insensitive. That is, I can use upper cases or lower cases in SQL. That is fine. Anything is fine. Okay. And if you observe whatever I'm writing here, before that I'm using this symbol, two hyphens, right? Sorry. That is nothing but comments. We have something called as comments in any language. Okay. That is whatever I wrote inside comments, that that particular thing is non-executable. If I don't want to execute something, if I want just to write as a notes, I will write those part inside comments. That is common for any programming language. If it is Java and if it is anything else, we will use something called as comments. That is, we will use some symbols before, and within that symbols we will write some points. That is, whatever we write inside that comments, those are not executable. We cannot execute that. Basically, if we want to write something normally as a notes, or if we want, if we did any mistake and if we don't want to execute that, we can just add comments like this. Okay, usually we will have two types of comments. That is single line comments and multi-line comments. Okay, so single line comments in the sense, to in one line, if I write one comment, that will be a single line comment. And the symbols we will use for single line comments are, in SQL, either hash I can use or else this two hyphens. Anything I can write. If whatever I will write inside either this hash or these two hyphens, that are non-executable, and I can write only one single line in between even after that. Okay. Likewise, I'm having multi-line comments, and the symbols used for multi-line comments are like this: one hash and star. We need to write first, that is the start point of multi-line comments. After that I can write anything. Okay, like something I can write. Just imagine this is line 1, line 2, line 3, and after that, to end that single that multi-line comments, I will first use star and then hash, like this. This is multi-line comments. If we wanted to write some multiple lines or some paragraph as a comments, we will use this symbols. Okay, so this is about single line and multi-line comments. Whatever we write inside that, those are non-executable. Okay, so now let's see again. Let's see. Let's start creating a database. So in SQL, whatever we do, we will have something called as syntaxes. Okay, syntax. That means a kind of rule or whatever we wanted to. I mean, for every topic, every concept, everything, we will have some syntaxes, and we need to follow that syntax. Okay, so let's see. First concept is, let's try to create a database. Okay, first let's try to create one database here. As you can see, this are all the list of databases which I already have. Okay, now again newly let's start creating a database. Okay, so as I said, for each and every concept, whatever we will do in SQL, we will have some syntaxes and we need to follow that syntax to do that task, right? So for creating database as well, we will have a syntax, that is, let me write like this, and the syntax is create database, database name. Okay, this is our syntax. We need to remember all the syntaxes. Okay, by default, with practicing, whenever slowly we will just get used to all the syntaxes, no problem. Okay, so for creating database, our syntax is this one: create a database, database name. We need to follow this syntax only to create the database. That is, create database. We need to give one database name here. For example, let me give it as SQL morning, as this is our morning batch. Okay, so I'm giving this as our database name. You can see create database, database name. I gave some name here. Okay, so if you observe, till now whatever I wrote inside quotes. So that is single line comments, right? So that is, I don't want it to execute all these lines. That is the reason I mentioned them inside single line, but I mean inside comments. But here I want this to execute, so that is the reason I didn't used any comments here. I normally wrote the syntax here, and now if I wanted to create the database, this is the syntax which we will need to follow, and now I need to execute that. Okay, for executing, let me select, and as I said, this is the execute button, third option, right? Let me click on this. Okay, at the bottom, as you can see here, this is our output section here, where after executing each and every query, we will see the output section here. In this, if you find like this green color tick mark, that means it got executed successfully. Okay, and yes, Dipit, Mac is also okay, no problem. We can install SQL and we can use it normally. Right. So this is the output section. So if we can see green color tick mark, that means it got executed successfully. If we got any errors, we can see something like a red color cross mark, which we will observe later. Okay. Now database got created, and my database name is SQL morning, right? So to uh, if you observe here, whatever database I created just now, that one just to display that, or else that to reflect this particular database in this list, we need to first refresh this. After schemas, here we have one refresh button, right? Like first you can see here SQL morning is not there in this list. I just now created whatever I created. To display this inside this list, I need to first refresh this. Let me do that. Once immediately after refreshing, now you can see this SQL morning database. We got this into this list, right? This is how every time if we wanted to, after creating, if we wanted to get into this, we need to refresh, then we can able to see. Okay. Now I created the database. After creating database, next we need to activate the database. Okay, activating the database in the sense, here you can see I'm having so many databases, the list of so many databases I'm having here. Okay, so every time, what is the concept here? I created one database, but I'm having so many databases list here. Okay, so if I execute any query, SQL will first get confused that in which database I wanted to use, which database I wanted to use, and whatever query I executed next, in which database I wanted to store. That is a confusion for SQL. Okay, so for that purpose, every time whenever we are using any, whenever we are starting using, we need to activate the database first. After activating the database, whatever queries we will execute, SQL will, understand that whatever the database is in activation, that database only we wanted to use, and all the queries whatever will execute, that will be executed inside that particular database only. Do you got my point? Let's see, suppose here I'm having all the list of databases. Obviously in real time we don't have this many databases. We will just connect to our client's database, and at that point of time, just a second guys. Sorry. So what I'm saying, in real time, as we have only one database, that is our client's database, directly we will connect to that database. Okay. At that point of time, we don't activate the database because we will have only one database, right? But in learning purpose, in learning process, as we have this many databases list, we need to activate the database. And to activate the database, the syntax which we will use is, we'll use keyword here. The syntax is use database name. Okay, this is the syntax. Use database name we need to use as a syntax for activating the database. Basically for activating the database, we will use command, and the syntax is use database name. Let me write that, use, and what is the database which we are using here? SQL morning, right? So now this, I'm basically activating SQL morning database by using use command. If you can see all our databases list we are having here normally. Okay, let's first execute this. If you can see, immediately after executing, this database got highlighted. The color of this changed into dark black. In out of all these databases, this is highlighted now. That means SQL will understand now that as I activated this database, I'm going to use this database only. Next, whatever syntaxes I will execute, all those things will be executed under this database only. Like that. Okay. So every time, daily also, whenever we started using, we need to first activate the database, and then we need to start using a SQL. Okay. So now what we did, we created database and we activated the database, right? And as you can see here, in every database, we'll have four sections. That is tables, views, store procedures, and functions. Okay. In which we'll first discuss about tables. We created the database, we activated the database, and as I said, inside database we will create tables, right? Inside tables we will store data like this. This is one table which we saw. Employees is our table name, and these are some columns, and this is our rows of data. That means we need to create, if you want to create table, we will create table like this, right? Let's see how we will create the table in MySQL now. Okay, so let's create the same employees table. So now let's create table. Okay, so as I said, for each and every concept we will have syntaxes. Likewise, for creating table also we have a syntax, that is create table, table name. First we need to give the table name like this. After that we need to use the parenthesis, that is brackets. Inside the brackets we need to mention the column names. As you can see here, employees is our table name, and I'm having 4 columns here, right? So first I need to mention the column names while creating. So suppose my column name is employee ID. Okay, next employee name, next salary, next date of joining. This is my column names which I wanted to use in my table. Sorry, as this is our syntax, let's first I directly wrote example. First, let's write the syntax here. Create table, table name. In that, I'll write it as column 1, column 2, column 3, like that. Okay. So now inside table, whenever we are creating, we will define columns. And for each and every column, we need to define something called as data types. Okay. Whenever we are defining column, we need to define a data type for that particular column. So first let's understand what is data type, then we will get back to the table creation. Okay, so what is data type? In the sense, data type is something which is, basically by using data type only we will decide what kind of value we can store inside that column. Okay, so I'm saying by using data types only we will decide what type of value we will store inside that particular column. Okay, that is, let's see, let's observe now what, why data types, uh, what is data type and why to use data types. Okay, suppose for example this is our employees table. I'm having 4 columns here: employee ID, employee name, salary, and date of joining, right? So if you observe, I entered this data inside an Excel file, right? So suppose, imagine this is a salary column. Obviously, we know inside salary columns we will have some numbers, right? Salary in the sense, definitely we will use some numbers, yes. Like in first row, I wrote 60,000, 50,000, like this. Suppose if I wrote in the third row, I'm entering some details here. And if I wrote suddenly something like this, okay, instead of numbers, suddenly I entered some text, or else normally I entered some data here. Okay, whatever I enter also is, this Excel is allowing me to enter, right? It is not throwing me any error. Basically in salary I need to store only numbers here, but randomly if I am entering some random or incorrect data also, it is accepting. It is not throwing me any error, right? That is the one of the main drawbacks of Excel file. If we store data in Excel, we have some limitations, okay, in which this is one limitation. Accordingly, whatever it is, date of joining, in the sense, obviously we need to write some dates. Instead of dates, if I'm writing something also, it is accepting, right? This is one of the drawback. Suppose suddenly, if knowingly or unknowingly if we enter any wrong data, Excel is accepting, actually it is not throwing me error stating. Suppose, whenever in Excel it is allowing me to enter wrong data, right? But whenever we are basically dealing with big data like this, because in companies we will have so much of data, right? Whenever we are entering some data like this, if we use this systems like something like Excel, as it is not throwing me any error, it will become a big problem for me, right? So as we are dealing with big data, we should have s- uh, you know we should have something very robust, that whenever we enter any wrong data, it should throw us an error, correct? We need to maintain systems like that. We need to maintain our systems in a robust way, that whenever we enter any wrong data, it should throw us error. It should not throw, even if I enter some wrong data, if here Excel, what it is doing, whatever data I entered, it is just accepting, it is not throwing me any error. So if I use this type of things in real time, if knowingly or unknowingly, if I wrote any wrong data, then it will become a mess for me to understand where suppose it is accepting if I enter some wrong data. So likewise, this is one of the drawback in Excel. Likewise, we are having so many drawbacks, but out of all those things, this is one thing. Okay, so to overcome this drawback, we have something called as data types in databases. Basically, in Excel, we have some five drawbacks. So as we are having some limitations in Excel, that is the reason databases came into existence previously. So all the drawbacks, whatever we are facing by using Excel or any other file formats, all those drawbacks are overcome by using databases. In which this is one drawback, that is if I enter any wrong data, Excel will allow. But in databases, basically, I will use one concept such that by using that concept, I will overcome by this drawback, that is nothing but data types. Okay. I hope I'm clear whatever I'm seeing. Is there any confusion? Perfect. So here, as I'm saying, it is just allowing me to enter whatever I write in Excel. But to avoid this problem, we introduced something called as data types in SQL. That is, every time whenever we are defining columns, at that time itself, we will define some data types for that particular column. According to that data type only, SQL will allow us to enter the data. If I enter any other data, it will throw me error. Okay. So first, that is about data types now, and that is what I'm saying. For each and every column, whenever we are defining, for every column, we will define some data types. That data type only will decide what kind of values we are entering in that particular column. Now let's see how many data types are there. And after seeing that, let's define the data types for this particular table. Okay. So basically in SQL, we have some data types. The first one is numerical data type. Okay. Second one is character or string data type. Third one is date time data type. Okay, we have so many data types, but mainly we will use these three data types. Okay, that is numerical data type, in which we will store numbers. Okay, character or string data type, in the sense we will store character data. Okay, date time data type, obviously we will store dates, right? All these three kinds of data types first mainly we will having. So let me show you one image. This thing, as you can see, SQL data types, first numeric, then character or string, date time. Again, this each data type will divide into like this. As you can see, numeric data type, again it is divided into two types, that is int and float. So what is int? In the sense, it will accept only numbers like this, 1 2 3, whatever numbers. We can basically store numbers inside int. Float, in the sense, it will accept decimal values also. Okay, let me write that here. So numeric data type is divided into two types, that is int and float. So int accepts numbers, float accepts decimal values and numbers also. Okay, normally numbers also I can enter inside float, decimal values also I can enter. Okay, character data type is divided into two types, that is char and varchar. So what is char, what is varchar, I'll explain in tomorrow's class. Okay. Next, date and time data type divides into two types. One is a date data type and the second one is date time data type. Okay. Obviously in date data type we will store dates and the format is like this: first year, then month, then date. We need to use this format only whenever we are entering data inside date data type. Okay. Likewise, we are having next date time data type and the format is year, month, date, as well as we can even enter hour, minute, second. Along with date, I can even use time here. Okay, that is date time data type. Okay, so these are our data types basically. That is numerical data type, character or string data type, date time data type. These three data types are mostly used very frequently in SQL. Okay, so accordingly, just now we observed what is this data types, what kind of data we will use inside this data type, right? Now, with by using this data types, by understanding this, let's define some data types on this table. That is, as I said, in create table syntax we need to use like this: create table, table name. For every column, after defining every column, we need to define the data type. Okay, this is the syntax of creating table. Okay, now let's see one example. So I wrote here create table, employees will be my table name, right? Let me just copy this at the bottom. Okay, this is the syntax and this is the example. So create table employees is my table name. After defining the table name, inside the brackets, inside parenthesis, we need to define column name. And for every column, we need to define the data type. According to that data type only, SQL will allow us to enter some values, right? If you can see, employee ID is our column. Obviously, I will employee ID in the sense it will be numbers. So for that, I'm just defining data type as int, right? Int in the sense, as you can see, I can able to store numbers inside int. So in employee ID, we will store only numbers, right? That is the reason I'm defining data type as int. For employee name, for now I'm defining data type as char. Okay. So what is char and what is varchar, I will explain you in tomorrow's class. But once for today, try to understand whenever we are defining character data, that is whenever we are using char or varchar, we will define size also. Okay, that is I'm defining char as a data type for employee name. Every time whenever I'm defining character data, I need to define size also. So let me give size as 10 here. While defining the size, after writing char or varchar, we need to use parentheses and I need to or define the size for this means here for employee name I using data type as char and I define the size as 10. That is, this size is something which I am defining that will tell me how much is as I used 10 here. That means I can enter up to 10 characters only in this column. In employee column, as a defined size, I'm defining size in the sense that much of characters only I can enter inside that column. Okay, if I enter any 11 letter word, it won't accept because I only reserved 10 bytes of memory or I only reserved 10 as my size for this particular column name. We will discuss about this thing detailedly tomorrow. Okay, for now, just try to understand this much. So I define char as a data type and I define size as a 10 for this column. Okay, next salary. In salary, maybe I'll define it as float because float in the sense it accepts numbers as well as decimal values. Suppose 50,000 is a number, and suppose if I want to enter 1.2 lakhs, 1.2 will become a decimal, right? That is the reason I'm using float here. Next, date of joining, I'll define it as date data type, right? So this is how we will use a create table syntax. Create table name. After writing table name, within the parenthesis, we need to give column names, and for each and every column names, we will define data types accordingly. Am I clear, guys? Perfect. Now, let's execute this. I'm selecting this line and I'm executing this. Okay. The table got created here successfully. Now, I can refresh here and I can see. I'm just refreshing this schema. If you observe now, I can able to inside SQL morning database, I can able to expand the tables here. This is table section. Let me expand this. You can see employees is the table. Just now I created, right? Like this, after refreshing, we can even see the list of the tables which we created. And if you can see here, in MySQL, if we click the table name like this, at the bottom, it will show us the information like this, like column names, whatever columns we created and whatever data types we defined. Right? This is one, beauty of MySQL. By just selecting the tables, we can able to see the information about that table at the bottom like this. Okay. So now table got created. Let's insert some data now into this particular table name. Okay, like here this is our table. I gave some table name. I defined a column names, that is I gave some structure to the table. Now I need to insert the data, that is rows data whatever I'm having, I want to enter into this table name, right? So for doing that, we will use insert command. Insert is one command. Use it to insert the data inside table, and the syntax is insert into table name. I'll write it as values and I can give some data here. This is our syntax. Insert into table name. Whatever table I wanted to enter the data, that table name I'll use. Let me write directly example here. So employees is the table name. Employees is the table name in which I wanted to enter the data. So I'll write it as insert into employees. Values is a keyword I need to write because I'm saying to SQL that inside this employees table I'm entering some values. And whatever data I wanted to enter, I will enter like this within the parenthesis. Suppose first row of data, whatever I'm having here. That one let me enter now. So for employee ID, I'm giving it as one. Employee name, I'm giving some names here. Salary, date of joining. We need to use this format only while entering the dates. Okay, first year, then month, then date. Okay, next, let me write first, then I'll explain. Okay, so here I entered some three rows of data. Okay, in this employees table, I'm entering the values and I gave the values First, within the parenthesis, whatever data I enter, in that, obviously, in what sequence we define the data, we define the columns, that sequence only we need to enter the data. Here employee ID is there. For employee ID I gave 1. So within the parenthesis, the whatever we will use a separator comma here, that is, this will be my first column data, then comma, this is my second column data, like that. This is employee ID, this is employee name, salary, date of joining. So within the parentheses, whatever we are writing, that will be my first row of data. In this my first row of data, I using comma as a separator, and I'm dividing the columns into like this, column data like this, right? And within the parenthesis, whatever I wrote, that will be my first row of data. After finishing first row of data, I'll close the bracket and I'll again use a separator called as comma. After that, I'll enter second row of data. Likewise, how many rows of data I wanted to enter, I can enter like this. Okay, so let's just execute this. I'm selecting everything, I'm clicking on this execute button. It got again executed successfully, right? So I created the table, I inserted the data. Now to display the data, whatever we created, we will use a command called as select. Select is a command used to display the data. Okay, and the syntax is select star from table name. Okay, here star in the sense we'll call technically it as asterisk. So use it to whenever we wanted to display complete data, we will use this asterisk. Okay, let me write the example. Select star from table name, that is employees. So whenever I wanted to display the complete data from employees table, I will use asterisk like this and select star from table name, that is employees I wrote. Let me select everything, let me execute, then I can able to get the output like this. We created 4 columns. We inserted 3 rows of data. The same table output, whatever we saw in Excel file, that output only we got in SQL also, right? This is how first we created the database, we activated the database, then we created the table, we inserted the data, and we used select command to display the data. So whatever I said till now, is that clear? Perfect. So we can close this output like this, cross mark. So this is about the basic understanding of how we will create what is database. First of all, what is SQL, how we will create the database, how we will create the tables into that database. Okay. In tomorrow's class, let's continue with the remaining concepts. Okay. So as you know, our course duration is of 35 days and the course fees is only 3000. And this is the course content which I'm going to explain in our complete course. Okay, starting from basic concepts to the most advanced concepts. Especially joins is a very important concept in SQL. Whatever role you will join, whatever in whatever company, whatever role you will work, if you are working with SQL, mostly you will use joins only. So especially along with all the whatever concepts we will learn in this course, all the concepts we will learn very practically by solving the examples. Till here you can see data type, SQL commands, integrity constraints. Till here, whatever is there in the course content, I'll use some basic tables till here only. Once we are done with integrity constraints, I'll give you real-time database. The specialty of my course is that we are going to use real-time database, that is Netflix OTT platform kind of database, to learn all the concepts here, so that in real time whenever you work in any company, you will deal with big data only, so that you will get hands-on experience in using a real-time big database. Basically, I'll directly give you this database, I'll explain the database first, and then we will start our main concepts from here. Okay, all the concepts whatever I'll teach, I'll use the same database, and we will solve everything, we will learn very practically by solving all the examples. Okay, uh, As you attended the session today, you will get one mail. In that the course content will be added. Just check that content, and all the concepts I will give you practically with examples only we will teach, but specially joins is important concept. Along with the examples whatever we will discuss in the class, I'll give some assignment questions also. That means I'll give some examples for you so that you can practice, and whatever questions I will give, we will solve that questions also in class. Okay. So if you have any questions, you can ask me. Even I included very advanced topics like, store procedures, CTE, especially Windows function. If you attend any interviews nowadays for SQL with some experience, Windows function is one advanced concept. This is a definitely interview questions. I included that concept also here. You can check our course content. Okay. If and again, as I said, duration is of 35 days and the course fees is of only 3,000. If you are interested, you can just get registered with us. And if you have any questions, you can just ask me now. Any questions? Do you want to know anything about our course or any questions? Perfect, Santosh. And the course time, I mean, our class timing is also from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. IST only, the same timing. Okay. So if everything is clear, I'll end the session now. Let's meet in tomorrow's class. So all of you, whoever attended today, is this timing okay for you? 7 a.m. I mean 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. IST. Obviously, this is the timing which we are going to follow. So just check with perfect Abhishek. Check with our course content. If you are interested, you can just get registered. Okay. And let's meet in tomorrow's class. I hope no one has any questions for me. Okay. Let's meet in tomorrow's class and let's continue with the topics.